Well, Jess, what a wonderful guest. Thomas Curran, I've heard of him. He's well renowned in our circles, and his work, based on some really good scientific data. And first off, he's saying, look, let's get over this once and for all. Perfectionism doesn't lead to better performance. It leads to burnout, high standards that we'll never meet. And frankly, when times get tough, people who give into this are not going to try because they're going to feel like, well, I'll never succeed. So why bother? So we've really got to get over this.
Absolutely. I love that he made it very simple. In my mind, it was, we used to think perfectionism good. He goes, no, perfectionism bad. Right? So just flip that switch. I love the way he talked about socially prescribed perfectionism. I thought that was such an interesting way to say it. But with all we see in social media and how that plays up, as well as education, it's what school did you get into, right? That drive for that. Changes in parenting, that we
we're helicopters. That's
Exactly.
how we raised our kids. I mean, you and me, when we were kids, mom and dad sent you out of the house at 7 a.m. Maybe around 11 p.m. they might go, where's Chester? But I remember playing a soccer game in another town, and my dad said, how are you going to get there? It's like, and we would take our kids, we'd worry about them. Oh my gosh, Johnny's having to wait 5 minutes. Just a different kind of environment. We had to fix things ourselves.
Right.
And whereas we didn't let our kids do that.
It's so funny that you mentioned that. I remember in high school, our basketball team had this tournament in Hawaii. And we came back and we were waiting for all our bags, and I'd bought all these pineapples for everything. And everybody's parent was there to meet them except my dad. And finally, this last family said, you should come with us. They're not coming. And it was late at night, and I got home and I said, hey, why weren't you at the airport to pick me up? My dad said, well, we figured you'd just hitch a ride. Like, they were asleep. Like, I wasn't home. They were asleep. They just expected when they woke up, they'd find me. I remember being somewhat crushed, and that probably explains a lot of who I am today. The point is the other point that he made, which I thought was really interesting, was, and the workplace is demanding more and more of this from us, where you and I spend the bulk of our careers. We've got to be careful. Now, big takeaway before I turn it back to some of your insights too, is this idea of to-do lists. Yeah. That perfectionism, causes us to make a list of 50 things. And yet, how many of those can you really let go? Like, really, what are just the core things you need to get done and let go of that long list of things?
Here's I have 3 today. You have 30. So which one of us may suffer a little bit more? Nobody ever accused me of being perfectionism. Yeah.
Well, and seriously, like of all those things that are listed, the only one that really matters is the one that I circled is the podcast. Make sure you show up for the podcast, right?
Yeah. And I know you, because you have a good heart. You like 15 of those things are connecting with people, making sure they feel good, and you're always giving, and bless your heart for doing that. But sometimes, it can lead to feeling overwhelmed. Hey, if you miss a day, it's okay. And I liked what he was saying too. Look, how do you break through? Well, sometimes it's just 5 minutes. Celebrate when you do 5 minutes towards your goal. Because I love what he said is, once you start, you're much more likely to finish.
That was a big takeaway for me too. Yeah. Just get moving.
Exactly. And asking, why am I overwhelmed? What's the big fear of this? So that was really good too. And, and the last thing, I don't know if it'd last, but, the culture doesn't allow us to fail. And we got to change that in our families. We got to change that in our workplaces.
Yeah. The phrase that I circled was, done is better than perfect. Just get her done. Yeah. Explore more, blame less. That when we kind of got into politics there a little bit, explain more and blame less. This idea that there's always someone to blame for my mistakes or why it wasn't perfect. More personal responsibility, that we've got to get better about blaming less. And then when he said, in my rehabilitation of perfectionism, that is being very vulnerable. He admits, look, I had to rehabilitate myself. And his best suggestion there was, be kind to yourself. Just be more kind. I love that.
Let things go. Be kind. Yeah, sometimes health happens, we can't control it. Sometimes life happens, we get laid off, something doesn't work out. Just be kind to ourselves. There's always a next time. And right now you are enough, which I think is a wonderful,
Great
wonderful,
message.
message to end on.
Yeah. Well, listen, what are we grateful for that keeps our anxiety levels down, Adrian? I think we're grateful for...
Yeah, there's a few people. Yeah, Brent Klein, who keeps our anxiety levels down, as our producer, to Christy Lawrence, who helps us find amazing guests like Thomas Curran. How cool was he? And to all of you who listened in, we thank you so much. You bring our anxiety levels down when we see you downloaded and shared our podcast. If you'd like to learn more, please visit thecultureworks.com. There's free resources there, including the first chapter of that best-selling book, Anxiety at Work.
I have several copies of that book. So funny that you would mention that right off the top. Yeah, and we love speaking to audiences around the world, virtually or in person, on the topics of culture, teamwork, resilience, anxiety at work. Give us a call. We'd love to talk to you and to your people at an event. Well, Adrian, just a remarkable guest. So much fun, so insightful, so smart, a recovering perfectionist with lots of lessons for all of us. And as always, I will give you the last word.
Just remember, I'm going to use the words of Thomas. Where you are is enough right now, and done is better than perfect. So until next time, we wish you the best of mental health.